Here today with Kodak M35 35mm camera, our second video for questions. The M35 has been very popular here in the US and around the world. With the publication of our first video, we have received a series of questions about this camera. If you are new to the camera, please see the link in our description for our first video that goes over all of the camera's functions as well as loading. The first question is, how do I know my roll is full? Does it stop, or do I have any indicator? I felt like I've been using the same roll forever. I know how you feel. Am I taking pictures above others and ruining them? Okay, there are a lot of folks using this camera who are new to film, who have never experienced film photography before, that are digital or phone shooters. Using a camera like this is a whole new experience. The first thing you need to know is this camera takes 35mm film. Film is light sensitive material. Here's your actual film. Your images will be exposed to this layer of your film. You cannot see your images until you shoot the roll the film back into the cartridge, and send your roll out for development. Then your negatives with your images on it, scanned and printed, and then your negatives are sent back to you. So it's very important to know that you're shooting on photosensitive film. There are two common types of film you could buy: 24 exposure rolls and 36 exposure rolls. That is how many frames you get per roll of film. For these plastic point-and-shoot cameras, 24 exposure rolls are the recommended, because if you use 36 exposure rolls, well, it's a lot of shots. The roll can get kind of jammed in your camera. This is a lot of film to put through a little plastic camera. Recommended 24 exposure rolls. How do you know, once you load your film, how many shots you have left? Here, oh my gosh, is an itty-bitty. Once you load your film, right here is your counter. That's your indicator telling you how many shots that you have shot. John, can you even see in there?
Nope.
Do you see how small that is? So tiny. So please, Kodak, for generation 2, that has to be changed. That's incredibly small. No one can see those numbers. So these numbers, it starts at S, and these numbers advance forward. Let's go over it really quick. We have a few questions, but let's do some basics first again, because it's kind of difficult. First of all, loading your camera. We covered this in the first video, but this is important information to know. You have to open up this top, like that. You put your film cartridge in here. Close this top. There you go. You drag your film over. This is going to tie into some other questions we have. You have to make sure that you are properly loading your film. If you do not properly load your film, you won't be shooting anything, because your film will not be advancing. You have to bring your film across, and there's a little, you see that nub? That grabs your film when you load it. It's a little tricky. You have to make sure your film gets on this nub. There we go. Once your film is on the nub, then your film also has to fit in this, see this gear here? Do you see that? Mm-hmm. That's very important. See now, so your film is on the spool, on the nub, and also your film is on this gear. If you misload this and your film is not on this gear, you will not properly be able to pull your film through. This is difficult at first, but you'll get used to it. So you close the back of your camera, then you advance your film, and you could tell it's advancing because this will turn. Now advance, see that? It's advancing. You advance it till you get to number 1.
Number 1!
So now we're on number 1. We're ready to start taking pictures. If you want to use a flash, I recommend it. You turn your flash on, flash indicator. Question. I felt like I've been using the same roll forever. So here's your indicator telling you you're advancing your film. And if you did not load it properly, you will seem like you're advancing it forever, because your film is not properly engaged on the sprockets. So it's not pulling the film through. You see that? That click? That means you're ready for your next picture. Ready to take your picture? Great. Advance, and you'll hear it click. Keep going. You hear that? Now you're ready for your next picture.
Gentle pressure.
Yes. Okay, next question. My film was properly loaded, but I got one of 36 photos back, and it was black. What did I do wrong? Is it because I opened the back when rolling it up? Yes, 100%. This is not funny, John.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Film is light sensitive, so once it's loaded in your camera, Do not open the back of your camera. So if you put a 24 exposure roll in you go to 24 on this counter, and then once you get to 24, do not advance it anymore. Go to the bottom of your camera, press this button here, you press that in, and then you rewind your film back into your canister. Film is light sensitive. If you opened your camera, took your film out, and had all your film spooled out, and then you rolled it back into here, you have exposed your entire roll of film and you will get no pictures back. I would say you were lucky to get that one shot back. Next question. Until what number the exposure counter? Mine reset back to S after 15. It will reset back. You're eyeballing your counter and keeping an eye on your counter, but if you open the back of your camera during your shooting, it will reset it to S and will expose your film to light. Never open your camera, back of your camera, once your film is loaded until your film is at the final exposure, in most cases 24, or if you bought a 36 exposure roll film, 36. The number that you go up to depends on what you put in your camera. If you do not think you'll remember, just take a piece of tape and write some notes on the back of your camera. That might be a good idea. What film is in your camera? How many exposures? Next question. Oops, I wound too far as I forgot what film I had in. How do I unjam it? Put a piece of tape here. It's like I'm yelling at everybody. Put a piece of tape here. Put the film, how many exposure numbers you have, on a piece of tape. Because you'll put your camera down for a few weeks and you'll completely forget what you have in your camera. And then when you go to advance your camera, you'll go past the number of exposures and it will jam. And it will jam so much that this button on the bottom of your camera, you won't be able to press it. If you go past the number of exposures on your roll of film, you will jam your camera. What to do? Well, the thing to do would be to go into a dark room. When I say a dark room, I mean completely black. Then you open up your camera, pull this tab up, take your roll out, and then by hand, in the dark, roll your film back into your canister. That's if you go past the number of exposures. Next question. The rewind and roll extraction process seems quite fiddly. The threading of the new roll is too. This is clearly not for kids, not a kid's camera. I had thought about this for my young school-age daughter, clearly not appropriate for her. I would say this is a camera for someone 10 years or older. The thing is, I think kids may be able to maneuver this better than adults. Because kids, they're fresh and they haven't lost their patience yet. So if you notice, all the questions pretty much tie into the same theme, which is how many exposures do I have? I recommend 24 exposure rolls of film. You could use 36, that's fine, but it may be a little harder to advance. Once you put your roll of film in your camera, write a note on the back of your camera of how many exposures you have. Once you properly load your camera, keep your eye on the exposure, the number, and when that gets to the number of exposures on your roll, let's say 24, stop, press the button on the back of your camera, like so, like that, and then roll the film back into its canister. As you're rolling back, you'll feel the film, and then the tension will change. So at that point, you'll know that it's done. If you can't go anymore, sometimes this will need to be pressed again, like I just did. Feel that? That means the roll is back. Open that up. Open your camera. There it is. Look at that. Second most important thing, when your roll is loaded, do not open your camera. 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 Do not open your camera to check on your film. Not only will you ruin your roll of film because it's light sensitive, but you will also reset the counter, basically screwing everything up. That's it. I've used this camera many times. I've got some great images from this camera. It's a fun camera. Once you master these basics of film photography, you'll be all set. Any questions for this part 2 video? Put them down below.